Welcome to the Transforming Trauma podcast. Transforming Trauma is presented by the Complex Trauma Training Center. I'm your host, Emily Ruth, and I'm so glad you've joined us today. As a mental health professional, you care for others, and the Complex Trauma Training Center is committed to caring for you. We are thrilled to introduce our Space Program 2025, an inner development program of support and self-discovery for therapists on the personal, interpersonal, and transpersonal levels. Therapists often focus so much on learning skills to use with clients that we don't leave space for ourselves. This interactive experiential program offers an immersive learning environment designed to cultivate space for ourselves in our professional role. Together, we will explore in a safe, inclusive, and supportive environment designed to cultivate space for self-care and self-discovery, with the intention to create greater effectiveness and resilience in our professional lives. We will be exploring the obstacles that stand in your way of being the most present, heartful, and effective therapist possible. Please visit complextraumatrainingcenter.com and secure your spot in the SPACE program. It's time to care for you. Welcome to a very special series here on Transforming Trauma. Over the next 3 episodes, we're turning the spotlight toward our amazing CTTC faculty, inviting them to share something we don't often get to hear, their origin stories of becoming therapists. This series was inspired by some deeply honest moments shared during our SPACE program, where faculty opened up about their own therapeutic failures, lessons, and growing edges. The vulnerability and realness they brought sparked something powerful among our community, and we realized how meaningful it can be to hear what shaped the people guiding and mentoring us. So in this series, you'll hear Stefanie, Marcia, and Brad open up about the messy, unexpected, and transformative journeys that led them to the work they do today. You'll get to know them in a more direct way, feeling into their humor, anxieties, aspirations, wisdom, and big hearts. It's a chance to get to know them beyond their professional roles through the same lens of honesty, reflection, and humanity that we strive for in all our programs. We're excited to share this Origin Stories series with you. I hope you enjoy. Stefanie Klein is a licensed clinical social worker, somatic experiencing practitioner, NARM master therapist, consultant, and assistant director for the Complex Trauma Training Center. She has spent 24 years in her Los Angeles private practice specializing in treating adults with trauma and anxiety disorders and has been mentored by Dr. Lawrence Heller, founder of the Neuroaffective Relational Model, for over a decade. This conversation was such a pleasure. It offered a meaningful opportunity to get to know Stefanie, not just professionally, but personally as well. She was incredibly generous in sharing so openly, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Okay, I am sitting here with Stefanie Klein. Welcome back to Transforming Trauma, Stefanie.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, so happy to have you and excited for this episode, excited to explore a little bit. And as you know, I always love to ask what you would like our listeners to come away with from our time together today.
Well, that's a great question. I hadn't really thought about that yet. I guess we all come into this field, this business, this profession for reasons that I think at the end of the day are kind of deeply personal about our journey, kind of what made us into a therapist, what made us interested in devoting our lives to being with other people, healing other people, holding other people. So I guess maybe this will be a way of inviting people to reflect on their own origin stories and their own journeys.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's really sweet. Well, so that's a great place to jump off from. If I can just get a little personal with you. Yeah, what comes up for you as you consider that for yourself?
You know, I use humor a lot, as people who know me know, and sometimes self-deprecating humor. But when I think about what made me into a therapist, I often joke it was debilitating symptoms of developmental trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I just was a very young child who was suffering with so much anxiety, global high activation in my nervous system. I had a pretty significant birth trauma. And of course, nobody understood anything then. So I was just the identified patient in my home. I was just kind of unable to really deal with life and just scared all the time. And, as it goes with the identified patient, everyone in the family starts to focus on that person and kind of make them feel like if they would just be normal, that everybody would be okay,
Mhm.
And we know now that the identified patient is kind of expressing things that need to be expressed in the whole family system.
Mhm.
So I was that person. I was sensitive. I was very symptomatic. I had debilitating separation anxiety. I had debilitating emetophobia, which, if you don't know what that is, it's like a really intense fear of vomit, like to the point where I couldn't even be at lunch at school because somebody might throw up and I would have to go eat with the school secretary. I couldn't do sleepovers. I would get homesick halfway through the day and start crying in first grade. I somatized, like I had all sorts of
Mhm.
physical symptoms and was convinced something was wrong with me. So a lot of hypochondriasis, a lot of fear about, somebody getting me in the middle of the night, fear of the dark, fear of intruders. I was just a hot mess.
Mm.
And my parents didn't really know what to do with me. My dad kind of shamed me and yelled at me for it. And my mom tried to support me, but was sort of under my dad's thumb. So I would say at probably the age of 10, I asked for therapy. I asked for help. And like, ta da!
I'm just thinking at age 10, how many 10-year-olds even know that therapy's a thing, that it
Right.
exists?
Well, with all the things that I was dealing with and going through and all the ways that my parents, out of their own upbringing and intergenerational trauma and all that, all the ways that they weren't actually helping me successfully. One really key thing is that my mom was in psychoanalysis and she was open about it. And so the fact that I had a parent who was in therapy, like let's just stop, it was the
Yeah.
60s and the 70s. So she was a bit ahead of her time, but I have a parent who was in therapy and then B was open about being in therapy. So I knew what therapy was everything because that's how I knew to ask for it. And that's how I knew it was like okay to ask for it.
Mhm.
So they said yes. And although my father resented paying for now both of us to be in therapy, he was already resenting paying for her therapy. And I was
Mm.
resenting paying for my therapy. He did. And I was in therapy for 2 years straight with this very Freudian pipe smoking man. Um, and it was crazy and ultimately amazing. And I
Hmm.
mean, like this guy, his name was Dr. Cerruti. Dr. Cerruti would pack his pipe and smoke it during our therapy sessions, if you can imagine that. But I have a really positive association with the smell of pipe smoke from that. It's
Mhm.
sort of the ritual of him packing the pipe. I
Mhm.
found it really soothing and comforting. He was kind of like a big man. And he used to say to me, "What do you make of this?" All the time.
Mm.
And we did all the things. Like I would bring in dreams and, he would do a lot of dream analysis with me. And I came to understand what was going on with me. And, I resisted sometimes too. I just wanted to play games. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to deal with it, even though I asked for it. But, he was very patient. I remember building a model airplane with him week after week. We would talk while we built this model airplane. And yeah, I came to really understand my separation anxiety and be able to challenge myself to, live a little more and feel safer in the world. And it was pretty amazing. And so I sort of decided then,
Yeah.
probably, let's see, this was like fifth to seventh grade. So probably, somewhere in there, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is super interesting. Like, this is amazing. And it really helped me. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And I never changed my mind.
You just knew. You felt it.
I just knew. Yeah.
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 Wow.
Like I would have a sore throat all the time. Probably now I understand somatics, probably because I was holding so much
Oh,
tension here. But
yeah.
I was always convinced that I was sick, something was wrong with me. And I think practically every week I made this man, this male psychiatrist smoking a pipe, look down my throat with a flashlight because like he's an MD, and I would make him check my throat. He was so patient with me.
Wow. And I mean, I'm listening to you talk. I'm feeling really touched, first of all, that you're willing to share all of this, but holding this idea of this young girl voicing what you needed, even if your voice was scratchy or,
Right.
yeah, like voicing what you needed or wanted and being met there in that space, and that this grown man was engaging with you in this way, asking you your dreams and genuinely interested. I'm just feeling really moved
Yeah.
by that.
Yeah, I really felt like he took me seriously, It's so
Yeah.
interesting, to think about, being a 10, 11, 12-year-old. I really felt like he took me seriously and he was
Yeah.
interested in my internal world, and that's what
Yeah.
we talk about all the time.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm feeling really touched by.
Yeah.
It seems clear that he was very interested and genuinely wanting to understand and
Yeah.
enter your world.
He wasn't trying to get me to do anything or be anything or change
Yeah.
anything. And again, this was more of a psychoanalytic approach. Even though I only went once a week, that was his training,
Mhm.
more psychodynamic.
Yeah.
When I think about it now from the perspective of what I know, he did the thing that mattered the most was that he was just interested in me and took me seriously as a
Mm.
human, as a person. I don't remember ever him trying to get me to do something or not get me to do something or push me in any way. I always felt like he was mine. Like I didn't feel like he was my parents. I didn't feel like he was doing their bidding.
Mhm.
And it's kind of a cool thing to marvel on from this perspective, to have that kind of therapy as a child. And I think if he had been more behavioral, like my dad hated that both my parents have passed away. I feel very comfortable speaking
Yeah.
very
Right.
honestly about them on this. But my dad and I had this lifelong power struggle about my wanting to keep lights on at night, which made me feel safe and made me feel like I could rest, and, electricity bill and everything. So I would turn them on and he would turn them off, and I would wake up and they were off, and I would get scared and turn them on. Like never did I feel like I was in therapy so that I would be able to sleep with the lights off.
Mm.
And to this day, I sleep with lights on. Like he wasn't taking
Mhm.
anything away from me. I felt like
Mhm.
he was really giving me a way of understanding myself that helped me feel safer in the world. And I think if it had been the other kind of therapy, I don't think I would have come to the same conclusion that this is what I want to do with
Mhm.
my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Gosh, and as a parent, I'm just taking this in again,
Yeah.
from that lens of like, what is it like to just enter the world of our children and really just be present and not try to change?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also makes me think about the fact that, my parents made a million mistakes, and I'm sure I'm making a million mistakes with my child. And my child's been in therapy since she was 8. She's graduating from college tomorrow, and she's been
Oh,
in
I love
therapy
it.
the whole time. Thank God.
Mhm.
But we're so human and imperfect as parents,
Yeah.
and we're products of all of the things, the cultural trauma, the
Mhm.
intergenerational trauma, our, family of origin stuff. But that also in there, they do things that are great. And, what I really credit my mom for was her willingness to be a human being with me and make it clear that she is a person who needed support and help, and
Mhm.
that needed to work through things. Like that really was such a gift. Yeah, I don't know where I'd be today if that wasn't the case.
Mhm. Mm.
It was such a secret back then. There was still so much stigma about therapy. So again, for her to be open and honest when there was such a stigma. I remember as a kid, it was not safe to tell people I was going to therapy. No way. So
You knew that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I knew that. Like,
Yeah.
so every week I had to go someplace at the same time. So like my friends would be like, "Where are you going? Why can't you come over?" And so I remember making up some ridiculous orthodontist kind of explanation. I have to go to the orthodontist every week for even though I don't have anything on my teeth. They're really doing something. You can't see it. But I was hiding it,
Mm.
and, she was open. So,
Mm. Yeah.
yeah.
So that was you said from like age for a few years.
Yeah, that was 10 to 12, and I sort of graduated from therapy at 12.
Mhm.
And then I went back at 19. No, maybe 18, 19. And I mean, I'm in therapy right now. I mean, I think I'll always be in therapy, but I took a break. But I never wavered from wanting to do that with my life after being helped with it so much.
That's so beautiful.
Did you go to therapy as a kid at all?
I'm going to admit, I didn't as a young child. I went at
Mhm.
18,
Oh,
and I hate to say it was actually really re-traumatizing. I think my mom had 10 sessions on her insurance or whatever. And basically, I went back and I relived something over and over. In me, I think it's supposed to be different than this.
Yeah.
I don't know that it didn't feel right to me. So when I was 22, I went back and I was very conscious. That's when I was like reading everyone's bio and like, what are they doing? I think that's actually when I started getting curious about different models because not every therapist is the same. And I didn't know that at 18. I just was like picking
Yeah.
someone off the insurance list kind of thing. And so at 22, I went back with a really amazing therapist and kind of undid a lot of the stuff I think that at 18 I had experienced. And yeah, I actually think that process of doing kind of my own research and really taking ownership really was so valuable. I think in some ways I wouldn't change that I had that first experience because I really owned my second experience. And then I've, had a therapy on and off ever since then. And so, yeah, I not as a young kid though.
It's amazing that you were willing to give it another go after that first bad
I
experience.
think back to that and I still am like, why did I do it? It was really tough. And so at 22, I knew I needed some really deep support. And I know I had a choice, but at that time it didn't feel like it. It just felt like I have got to deal with this. This is so major. And if I don't deal with it, life will really be unmanageable. And so it got to that point where making the choice to go back and try it again didn't feel as scary as not trying it.
Yeah.
But I know I had a choice. And yeah, I feel some kind of healthy pride or whatever that is around, I was willing to try again. And that therapist, she's still working. She's in her 80s now, I think. I hear great things. She's still in the field. And it's like, yeah, I was glad I tried it again. And I felt good that I chose someone who really knew her stuff. And yeah.
Makes me think about how the mark that we leave as therapists. I mean, not that anybody who's a therapist needs anything else in their mind to put more pressure on themselves.
Yeah.
So I want to say that, this isn't about pressure, but
right.
Just thinking like I'm talking about my therapist. I'm guessing he's not alive anymore, but I'm talking about this man who I met when I was 10 and he shaped my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
That's so huge. And that can be negative or positive,
Sure, either way.
Yeah, that can be a very powerful relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also thinking about as a kid in therapy, I think I wanted therapy. Like I wanted relief of my symptoms. But then when I got into therapy, I was really resistant. I feel like, I'm sure this is a little distorted, but I feel like I would go in there for months at a time and just refuse to talk. I was really resistant, which is interesting thinking about it from this perspective, which I haven't in a long time, about core dilemma and about also being a kid who is needing to come to terms with some things while still living in their home with their parents who they're still very dependent on and how hard that is. But I think it was a long time that I was like, I don't want to go. And then it was like my parents were like, well, you're doing this now. You're going. I'm glad they did. I'm glad they held me to it. Oh. But I also think that's really interesting to just think about that what we, sometimes call resistance, but we might call more the other side of the dilemma, I want to get better. I want to feel better, but what am I going to lose or what's going to happen if I really do? And then it's sort of like one day I just got over it and I was just like, okay, I'm going to do this.
That's so interesting to me. What do you make of that? Like when you think about what was happening for you, like walking in and I don't want to talk for however long.
I haven't thought about it in so long, but I'm guessing that I was really in a bind, I mean, what healing separation anxiety and this kind of anxiety means, it meant understanding some things about my mother and my father. And that meant having to feel some feelings, I'm sure, that were scary to feel.
Yeah.
And I was just like, nope, I'm not going to do that right now. I think I just got bored of that at some point, and I was just like, I might as well just really do this. But it's funny. I mean, all the mixed emotions. I asked to go to therapy. I wanted it, and then I didn't want it, and then it changed my life.
Well, I mean, even as you're saying this, I'm just thinking as an adult, how many times I've done something similar as an adult. Like, I want this thing, and then I show up and it's terrifying, or I think it's terrifying, or you know what I mean? And there's that inner conflict and kind of taking that space to decide, yeah, that's so human, right?
It is so human, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we think about with kids, what they need to keep their strategies, they need to. It's funny, I had therapy today. I was just talking to my therapist about the fact that some of my anxiety and my behaviors as a child were my ways of trying to get my parents to parent me, to get my parents' attention, to get them to show up. I had to be sick. I had to be a mess. I had to be symptomatic. My symptoms, which I was tired of and didn't want anymore, were also, I think, serving a really important purpose. They were communicating something that I needed, and they were the best tool I had to reel in what I wasn't getting.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it must have been scary to think, uh-oh, this guy might actually help me get better.
Yeah. And then what? If you're no longer having
Exactly.
symptoms or you're no
Yeah.
longer having, what happens? Do mom and dad?
Exactly. And then what?
Mm-hmm. So this was your experience as a young one. You said even from that point on, you just kind of knew.
Yeah. I studied psychology in college and I knew I wanted to go to graduate school. But I also, I was 22 years old and I had never even supported myself. And I looked really young and I felt really young. And so I just had this sense that I need to live a bit of a life before I go to graduate school and become a therapist. So I took 4 years after college to just work and be a person in the world and kind of grow up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really cool job. I was a legal recruiter. So I worked for big law firms in the early 90s when they had big budgets. And I ran their summer recruitment programs where they would recruit law students to come in. And then they would try to woo those law students by entertaining them all summer. So my job was basically to go to cool things all over Los Angeles and plan cool things all over Los Angeles with people my age.
Wow.
It was amazing. It
That
was
sounds so
also
cool.
an excellent dating pool. So I was like, oh, okay. I'm going to get some people out of this. So I loved it. And I loved it until I didn't. I kind of, again, got to the point where I'm like, this is not challenging. I am bored. I'm not utilizing myself. I just came to this point where I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to study for the GRE. I'm ready to go to graduate school.
So that whole gap, did you know eventually you wanted to go back to grad school and particular to study? Okay.
I was taking time to grow up and get ready to have something more in life experience to offer as a therapist. Than just I was in graduate school with a couple of people who rolled in right after college. And, there was a struggle there because they had been in the protective kind of womb of college. So, learned how to be an adult for a while.
Yeah.
I
love that. And then can I ask about your program?
Yeah, I decided my therapist at the time was an LCSW and she had a lot of influence over me. And she highly recommended that I go that route because she said, even if you don't want to do traditional social work, because I don't know if it's the same now, but at that time, the MFT license was only recognized in California. And she's like, you don't know where you're going to want to be. And the LCSW is recognized nationwide. So I just applied to LCSW programs and, learned a lot of things that I knew I wanted to be a psychotherapist and I knew I wanted to be in private practice. So there was a lot of things that weren't super applicable, but it was great to learn them. It gave me a great sense of a bigger picture.
Yeah.
But I was in graduate school with people who are more interested in traditional social work. I was a little different in that way. And in social work programs, I didn't get a lot of mental health training. I mean, I was learning about welfare reform. I wasn't getting, if I had gone the MFT route, I would have learned a lot more about different theories and different approaches. So when I came out the other end, I really had to learn all of that on the job.
Yeah.
Which was fine. I had some cool internships. One of my internships was working in the intensive care unit and at that time, the AIDS unit at Kaiser Permanente as a hypochondriac. I mean, as we know, our issues continue to be our issues. And although mine were much more manageable, they were still there. So that was a really tough placement for me. And then I also interned at the Student Psychological Services at UCLA where I was going to school. And that was an amazing internship because it was very much a private practice model, which is what I wanted to do.
Yeah. So when you graduated, did you go right into private practice?
I did, which was also a bit of an odd choice because it was much harder to get my hours that way. But I found a practice that was looking for associates. And I mean, I think the first year I had 4 clients.
Mhm.
It was slow. It took me twice
Yeah.
as long to get my hours, but the
Yeah.
supervision was really, really good, really good. And I was also
Mm.
learning how to run a practice. And I ended up staying with them for 9 years. So I stayed through licensure and then after licensure because it was just such a great fit. And I was doing what I wanted to
Yeah.
be doing.
I can actually so much see the benefit of having fewer clients, but like depth
Mhm.
supervision around that. Like it sounds like there could be a lot of really good things about that, even if it takes longer to accumulate hours.
Yeah, it was an interesting model. I mean, I was jealous of my friends at the time who were like working for an agency or something, and they were
Yeah.
just
Racking them up.
racing, 2 years and they were taking their exams and stuff.
Yeah.
However, then they wanted to start practices and it was hard. And for me, I did it this way and my
Mhm.
practice was built. When I was ready to
Yeah.
go out on my own, it was nothing.
Yeah.
I had a practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so many different approaches.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I liked was that I was working with all sorts of different things. The practice that I affiliated with had a specialty of addiction. And so probably my
Mm.
first niche was addiction.
Mhm.
And they sent me all over the place to get trained, including at that time. I'm sure they don't have this anymore because it isn't okay. But at that time, they had at the Betty Ford Center a professional in residence program where you got to go be in rehab for like 4 days to learn. It
Oh.
was crazy. Like
Whoa.
this strikes me as so unethical. Like I was in people's groups.
Whoa.
I was in meetings. I was in groups. Like I did rehab
Did
to learn.
did they understand or know that you were not?
Yes,
Oh, they
yes,
did.
and
Oh
they
my
didn't like
word.
it. They
No,
didn't
I
like
can
it, but
imagine.
the Betty Ford Center felt like it was really important that especially for people who are working in addiction who weren't in recovery for an addiction, that it was really important that they had real experiential learning.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I got to do that, and I got to hear all these amazing speakers of the time, like
Yeah.
Carnes on sex addiction and John Bradshaw, and they just sent me all over the place to learn about addiction. And so we were community care providers for the Betty Ford Center, and so I did a lot of addiction work. But because of that, I never really got to ask myself, like, what do I want? What's my passion?
Mm,
If I got to decide my specialty, what would it be?
right.
And it didn't feel like it was addiction to me. And so this is like another part of my origin story. You have to do CEUs and stuff like that.
Right.
I would just kind of pick them based on where they were and if there was going to be good food.
What's the menu like?
Right. I'm like, what treats might I get if I go to this? And so at the Beverly Hills Hotel, Peter Levine was speaking
Mhm.
on trauma and spirituality. That was the topic. And I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And also, the Beverly Hills Hotel is probably going to have a good lunch. So I'll go to that one. And he gave this talk and showed his videos of animals shaking and plonking and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like that was a total aha moment for me. And I was like, this. Because all of a sudden, so many things about my anxiety and all these things, I had been in therapy for so many years, but none of it was somatic. It was all
Mhm.
psychodynamic therapy. And as amazing as that was, and it was so
Yeah.
helpful,
Yeah.
I didn't understand that I had a body or a nervous system or anything, nor was I doing therapy with people in a way that was including their body. And all of a sudden, all of these pieces kind of fell into place. And I was like,
Yeah.
I am doing this 3-year training, the end. Yeah.
Wow. I'm excited in this moment. All about trauma. So you did SE, the
I
program.
did see it. I did. It was a 3-year training at that point. I don't know if it still is.
Mhm.
And it was amazing and both growing my own healing and just learning about the nervous system and the body and all these things that had been completely left out of my
Yeah.
supervision, my education, absolutely nothing somatic. And then I had a young child at the time and I'm a unitasker, not a multitasker. And so I was one of those people who did very few of my consultations or personal sessions during the training because I was just trying to fit it all in. And so after the training was over, I'm like, okay, now I have to dig in and do
Dive
all of it.
in.
And one of my classmates in the training was like, we're going to do a consultation group with this guy, Larry Heller. That we're going to get our hours. That's what we're going to do. You're in the group. And I'm like, I am. They're like, yep, he's local and, he's really smart and you're going to go do this with us. And I'm like, okay. And that's how I met Larry.
Okay. And this is like in the 90s or when was this?
No, now we're right when Larry's writing the book. He's finishing up writing the first book, Healing Developmental Trauma. So at this point, by the time I went and found SE, we were well into the 2000s. So this may be 2012, 2011, 2010. Okay. And I started by just doing this consult group with him. And then I'm like, oh, well, I have to do personal sessions too. So I did my personal sessions. And Larry, even though he was providing SE sessions at the time, was like, kind of every other sentence was saying like, this isn't shock trauma. Like your client's not coming in with shock trauma. This is developmental trauma. I have a different approach for that. So instead of really learning SE, I learned NARM.
Wow.
And instead of having SE sessions, I had NARM sessions.
NARM sessions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how I learned NARM because I never had a NARM training. I'm like the odd man out there. I've never had an NARM training. I've never been in a breakout group. I haven't had active coaching.
Do you feel like you missed that?
I mean, sometimes I'm like, oh, phew, because that looks really hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, wait, I never got to have this.
Yeah, because even Brad and Marcia, they did his training.
Yeah, his first training in Los Angeles, his first U.S. training.
Yeah,
Brad and Marcia were in, and I was his assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had learned a ton of NARM at that point I finished my requirements and I finished my personal sessions. And I'm just like, can I keep having consultation with you? Because whatever it is that you're doing, this is what I want to be doing. So I kept having that like this, this is what I want to be doing. And the next thing and the next thing. Although since NARM, I haven't really changed my mind, but NARM really spoke to me in terms of I was doing a lot of long-term therapy and I think really good therapy with my clients, but I would get to a point where I couldn't get beyond. I knew there was more healing that needed to take place, more shifts that needed to take place, but I couldn't get there with what I knew. And then once I had NARM, a lot of the long-term work I was doing started to really move and deepen. And like we always say, because it's true, and it was just easier. I had a different relationship with the work. So I was like, okay, this is the model that I've been looking for. It incorporates the somatic piece, but it's really speaking to what my clients are coming in for, which is complex trauma, developmental trauma, their relationship to themselves and the world,
Yeah. So at that point, were you still, because obviously we all know addiction and like the overlap with developmental complex trauma, were you still doing a lot of addiction work with clients at that point?
I was still open to all sorts of different things, but I was becoming more and more interested in anxiety and trauma, but addiction comes with that. So I was doing everything. I was only seeing adults. I wasn't seeing kids, but couples work and kind of anything that people wanted to work on, but from a NARM perspective. And started assisting, and the rest is history. Yeah. Deeply grateful to the whole journey, and then that led to Complex Trauma Training Center, which goes beyond any model, including NARM, and is, really, I guess that was the next aha. I lied.
Yeah.
There was one more aha. There was one more aha. I mean, NARM really still feels like the model that speaks to me and the way I want to work. I think it's a brilliant model. But I think what I discovered, and I know Marcia and Brad as well, from years of teaching NARM and consultation and everything, was that our real passion was mentoring therapists. And so that was the next aha, was that we wanted to create something that incorporated NARM, but that was about this passion that had grown for us through being NARM providers and consultants and mentors and teachers.
Yeah.
Now here we are.
Yeah. And I'm just, obviously, if anyone isn't familiar, there's the SPACE program, and that really, what you just said really speaks to what you're doing there, because that's not NARM, but it's like through this lens and the mentorship that you talked about, but it's like through this lens of like looking at the self of the therapist and like supporting that whole process. And
yeah, exactly. It's definitely a program that can help people no matter what model they practice,
Right.
although we all,
Yeah.
the faculty practices NARM, but no matter what model someone
Mhm.
practices, it's really turning the focus inward, it's inside out learning
Mhm.
and nurturing the person. I think Brad said it once. It's like we developed this program to support and nurture the person who is practicing these skills, whatever they are,
Yeah.
whether it's NARM or whether it's cognitive behavioral. And, so I imagine more passions will show up in life
Mhm.
and there might be more ahas for me.
Mhm.
I guess I think about what we've been talking about today, and it was kind of like a journey through ahas, like be a
Yeah.
therapist. Wait, there's more than just
Yeah.
the head when you're doing
Uh-huh.
therapist. Wait, it's really about developmental trauma.
Mhm.
Wait, I want to support therapists because we need it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I really enjoyed this because I feel like I've heard bits and pieces of your story, just in the moments, like between things, just being able to connect. But this has been such a joyful, like just getting to know you, Stephanie, and hearing a little bit more of your story. And I'm sure there'll be folks who are also appreciating that.
I hope so. And it makes me really curious. I mean, I know I can't ask you all the questions back. Each of us is one of these stories.
Yes.
It just makes me feel so curious about other people because in each of us is one of these stories with all these little
Hmm.
details,
Hmm.
about how we got here and why we're here and what we want from it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I appreciated you even asking me that question about if I had had therapy as a child, because in myself, I've known that piece around, going to someone at age 18 and not having a super positive experience and being really conscious and deciding to do it again a few years later. Inside of me, I've thought about that, but I've actually never said it out loud. I've never really talked to anyone about
right.
what that meant for me. And so even you just offering that space to consider, oh yeah, that really did make a difference for me. And I do feel good about making that decision and really owning my mental health experience. And so, yeah, I like that invitation for us all to consider. We all have a story. We all have a journey.
Yeah. And people don't really ask us about it so
Hmm.
much. I mean, we're starting to ask these questions in space, but
Hmm.
I sort of want to, for those of you who are listening, who are therapists, I sort of want to invite you to tell someone your story, whether it's, somebody you live with or a friend, or even journal about it. Like sit down and think about your story and tell someone, because there is something about saying it out loud to someone that makes you think about it in a different way. That when you bring in the relational, like I'm telling someone.
Hmm.
Yeah. As far as our community and everything, I would love to hear everybody's
I
story.
know. Well, that was so fun. The first session of space when you and Brad and Marsha each kind of gave a little snippet and getting a taste of that. I think a lot of us, in that class were appreciating those moments. And so you're inviting all of us to do the same. Open our hearts a little bit.
I am. I feel like I'm teaching right now. And then also reflect on how it is, how it feels for you. You relate to your story from where you are now.
Hmm.
That's my invitation. No pressure.
I love that invitation. That's great. And if you're in the Facebook group, you can jump on there and maybe share.
Oh,
The
yeah. Oh, yeah.
CTTC Facebook group, maybe share.
That's a
Maybe
good
there'll be a
idea.
thread.
I'll
Start a
do that.
thread on there. Yeah. Well, Stephanie, this has been lovely. I'm aware of the time, so I want to give you space to do what you need to do. But is there anything else, any final words, thoughts?
Just thank you, Emily. You make it so easy to have these
Mm.
conversations, and so I appreciate you.
Thank you. I really enjoy the opportunities. So awesome. Well, thank you. We'll be back again, I'm sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure we will.
Thanks so much for joining us for today's episode. To find more information about our guest, check the show notes or visit us at complextraumatrainingcenter.com/transforming trauma. You can also connect with us in other ways. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're a licensed mental health professional working with complex trauma and are interested in learning the neuroaffective relational model, we're excited to share with you about our upcoming NARM therapist trainings. The NARM therapist training is a clinical training where you will be trained in a comprehensive developmental framework and clinical approach for resolving the long-term impacts of ACEs and CPTSD. As you learn and integrate NARM, you will receive individualized support and join an engaged professional community of therapists passionate about healing complex trauma. Learn more about this training and reserve your spot by visiting complextraumatrainingcenter.com. Thanks to Andrea Klunder and the Creative Imposter Studios for producing and editing, to Elisa Sponseller for our album art, and to Brad Kammer for the creation of this podcast. We look forward to building community and connection with you and changing the world by transforming trauma.